Hi Denise and everybody. When I heard about this contest, I had to do it because my mother is somebody very special. My mother's dead now. She died Halloween of 1982. She was in the hospital and she was supposed to come home that day and they found her dead in bed. They think her heart gave out on her, and it probably did because she had a lot of problems including her heart. But she died on Halloween, and my sister and I always say, Halloween is All Saints Eve, and All Saints Day is the next day. We think she went to heaven because she's a saint, and that's the day that saints go to heaven. Um, my mom had a very bad childhood. Well, it was bad in a way. She was the oldest of 5 children, and at the age of 8, she's the oldest. Her mother died, and her father, instead of giving all the kids to the grandmother who offered to take them in, my mother's father put them in an orphanage. And my mother used to tell me stories about how she used to have to go down to the smaller children at night to comfort her 2-year-old sister because her 2-year-old sister was asking for her mother. And my mother, I remember telling me that story. And I had a good childhood. I was the youngest of 8, and there's 8 years difference between me and my next one up. My sister's the oldest, and I'm the youngest. And I have 6 brothers in between. And my mother was very very good. She never yelled at me. She never slapped me. She slapped me once, and I had no idea what she slapped me for until I was older and had a kid doing the same thing that I did to her. I was following her around the house and doing the same thing she did, and she turned around and slapped me. It's the only time ever remember her slapping me, and I understand it now. I didn't then, but I understand it now. And I used to go to a Catholic school, and every time I used to have to wear a uniform, and every time there was a day that we didn't have to wear a uniform, she would buy me a new dress. She worked at in the children's department of a department store, and every time she heard the next day was a free dress day, she'd buy me a brand new dress. And every time I go to school the next day, they all would point out how pretty my dress was. Mother used to like to dress me up. My mother also was 44 years old when she had me, and she always said that she had the choice when the time came to either it was their 25th wedding anniversary when they had me, the month before. And my mother said we always decided, well, we could either go away on a vacation trip for our 25th wedding anniversary, or we could have you, and we had you. So she always tried to make me feel good because there was so much age difference. They were very old. My father was 55, and my mother was 44 when they had me. So it was hard for me growing up with older parents, but I didn't really enjoy my mother until after she was older and she started getting sick. Um, I had a rough patch of teenage years. I used to cut school, and I was suspended dozens of times, and a couple of times I yelled and swore at her, and she said to me, I don't know what those words mean, but I know you don't really mean it," she used to say to me, and it kills me now because I never apologized for that to her, and I really, after she died, I wrote her a letter and put her in her coffin, apologizing for that time in my life when I had a rough time, and she was so patient with me, and she was so worried about me, and I really feel bad that I never apologized for that episode of my life. My mother lived for her children and her grandchildren. They were her life. She loved the grandchildren. She spent all her money on clothes for the grandchildren or gifts for the grandchildren. And when we were little, she did the same thing. She didn't work at the time. My father, they didn't have a lot of money, but she lived for my brothers and sister and me and the grandchildren. The only grandchildren she doesn't know is my 2 kids, and one of my brother's kids is younger than my kids. Those are the only grandchildren she never knew. And I try to tell my kids about their grandmother, and you know, she would have loved them. Um, that's about it. My mother was just a very, very, very affectionate woman. My father wasn't very affectionate, but my mother wanted to be affectionate. She would hug people, and my mother loved to play cards. My mother's sister, she was very close to my aunt. My aunt was a nun, and every time my aunt had vacations, she'd come and stay with us for sometimes a month at a time. At times, and my mother and her they would be like little girls together. They'd be giggling, they would be playing cards together. They would do things together. My mother loved it when her sister came to visit, and she was a nun. My aunt that was a nun was was just a big girl, a big kid. She was never an adult. To me, she was always just a big kid. And she used to go and jump rope with the kids at school. She was a school teacher. She taught I think first or second grade, and she also did the first communion. She prepared all the kids for first communion when the time came. But my mother just got along with her so well, and they used to see them together. It was so funny. They were just so happy to see each other and be with each other. And my mother just loved us, and I really miss her. She died 6 months before I was married. She knew my husband, but I don't think she liked him very much. But she died 6 months before we got married, and the day of the wedding was fine. All day in the wedding was fine until about halfway through the wedding ceremony. It hit me. My mother wasn't with me, and I just started crying. And everybody tried to comfort me, and they said she was watching over me and all that. But I love my mother very much. I miss her. I think she would love a lot of things that are around nowadays. And I wish I would have taken her in and had her live with me if after my father died. But I miss my mother, and I love her very much.